We just had Paridhi from Skilled Smart in, and she's an awesome example of having an idea and finding a problem and just having a go at it. She had a look at what was the problem with people engaging with their finances and understanding why people were getting to a whole lot of success in their life, but still not knowing where their super fund was and what their money was doing. And she went out and solved it. So there's a whole lot of interesting discussions that we have around that journey, what she's learnt, how advisors can actually take some learnings out of it and apply it to how they engage with people. So sit back and enjoy the show.
Hub24 is an ASX-listed company with over $10 billion funds under management and one of the fastest-growing platforms in the market. Neither a bank nor part of a bank, Hub24 focuses entirely on connecting advisors to a broad range of investment solutions for their clients. Discover why other advisors think Hub24 are the best in the market and access the benefits of choice and efficiency for you and your clients with their market-leading managed portfolio solution. To find out more, visit hub24.com.au. Paridhi, what's happening?
Not much. How you guys?
Oh, just chilling. Just
Friday.
chilling.
Oh, it is Friday.
Wow.
It's a good day.
We met because you do some pretty cool stuff in the financial education space. And one thing that I find financial planners don't do amazingly well is public-facing education. I think a lot of financial planners get kind of intimidated or scared that they're going to say the wrong thing or put themselves in a difficult situation.
Or have their compliance team knock on their door going, what did you say to those kids?
Yeah. And I think it's a real problem, which has always kept financial education on lockdown in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And then you came along.
Yeah.
And you were like, stuff all that stuff. I'm just going to go out and teach people. And so, mad props to you, first of all, for doing that. And then over time, I'm not sure if this was quite an angle of yours to begin with, but if I look at your marketing material, it's female focused in a lot of ways. Was that intention?
That was never actually deliberate.
Yeah, okay.
So it might be coming across, I might just be choosing feminine marketing because I'm female.
What is feminine marketing?
It's flowers. It's a lot of flowers.
Oh, that's big.
I was gonna say pink, but I thought that was a bit.
I have strategically stayed away.
That's a bit simplistic.
Very deliberately. So interestingly, I never deliberately intended this to be a female product or a female-oriented business, but I did see that like a good 80% of the demand was from women.
Mm-hmm.
And I have had people, like students, come up to me and say, like, oh, because you're female, I felt more able to sign up for it. So it might be that,
cool.
As the face of the business, that has a bit to play with it. But it was never intended to be that way. But I think in terms of the marketing angle, I think the effort was not to be feminine. The effort was to be engaging. And I think what I saw was that across financial services, generally speaking, the marketing was really dry and unattractive and unengaging.
Yeah.
And like the websites were just very boring very like, do you know what I mean? Like they just hadn't been updated into like 2018. And it was just...
2011, you should say.
Yeah. And it was kind of like, well, even if you kind of like go and look at, say, like the Vanguard website, it's like no wonder like most people don't kind of voluntarily go to the Vanguard. Do you know what I mean? So
definitely.
Even companies that are doing remarkably well haven't really invested in the user experience and engaging kind of like a younger demographic. And so that effort was more, how do we kind of market the way that, millennials might expect of their ordinary B2C companies to be marketing to them? Not so much the female angle, but probably more the younger angle of getting people just interested and not feeling like there's that intimidation barrier.
So this is sort of how it's evolved now. But what was like? How did it first kick off? Yeah, tell us about the genesis of.
So I think there are two stories. The first was some years ago. I used to work at the Cancer Council in their pro bono department. They have like a legal and financial services pro bono
Yep.
department.
I probably answered an email from you or something because I did that for a little bit.
I've had a couple of financial advisors that say, hey, we used to anyway. So I used to work from them as one of their as you
Like the
picked up.
liaison.
Yeah,
sort of,
well, as in like in their call center. So like, just
Yep.
taking the calls and working with the people as like the front person. So we would be the people who would actually take the calls and talk to the people, and then we'd fill out the form and send it your way.
Yeah, so you'd
like an
assess
actual
the
advisor.
need
Yeah.
and
So we would take them through like that means test and everything. And I must have been like 20 or something. So I was pretty young and pretty like naive about the world and pretty, I guess, optimistic about the world. And then, I'd have like so many calls from people who were like in their 40s, in their 50s, telling me like, I thought I had my shit together. Am I allowed to swear on this thing?
Yeah, go for it. Drop the bombs.
I thought I had it together, and then like I've been hit with cancer, or my husband's been hit with cancer, and suddenly like, financially it's just like everything's falling apart. And how did we get here? Because I thought I'd done everything right.
Whoa.
And as a 20-year-old, that's really hard to hear because you kind of assume that by the time I'm 40, I'm going to have my shit together, right? And then you're hearing all these people saying, I thought I was doing the right things, but now I'm like, it's falling apart. Like, I can't work because I'm the carer. Husband's got cancer. We've got 3 kids. We've got a mortgage and we've got this debt. And it was really obvious to me, like I have a bit of a background in like finance and economics. So like I understand the jargon probably better than the average Australian. And even at that stage, it was very obvious to me that most of the people that I was taking calls from didn't have a basic grasp of their finances. So we would go through the means test and be like, do you have insurance in your super fund? And they were like, I don't know, or, what are your assets? It's like, well, I have a car. And so like that basic level of understanding of what constitutes wealth and how to manage your basic wealth and finances just wasn't there. So that really stayed with me. And then I went off, had a career, management consulting, all of that good stuff after I graduated. And then the second kind of, I think, the closer one that really tipped it over the edge was a more personal interaction. I actually wanted to change my super fund. And I was like, just asking my friends, like, oh, what like super fund are you with? Like, why did you choose them? They actually couldn't answer the first question, let alone the second one. Like, they were just like, what super fund am I with? Like, do you know what I mean? And I think that was, like when I was 20, it was like, okay, well, this is a specific segment of the demographic. But now it was like my friend circle, and it's like, wow, this got really personal real quick. It's like, I know these people and I know how they've grown up and I know the education they've had. It's not at all.
How does this gap
like,
emerge?
It was just like, this is unacceptable. Like, how do you get to being a doctor on a 6-figure salary and not having any understanding of your money? And then I think it started to just kind of like snowball from there. I was like, okay, like, how is this even a thing in society that, money, that's something that's so basic that we use for like literally every day of our lives till the day we die, and we receive zero education on it. And we spend a good deal of our lives chasing after it, whether you want to openly acknowledge that or not, right? Like, we all are impacted by money, and yet like most of us just have no clue. Yeah. And so I think that really hit home. And then I kind of started to research. I was like, okay, if my friends and I wanted to like get our finances sorted, surely there's a solution here. What would the solution be? And the main solution was financial advice.
Holla.
And the reality is that it was quite expensive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And so when I started to like realize that actually 80% of Australians don't ever seek financial advice, and a large part of that is because a lot of them can't afford financial advice, it was kind of like saying the only way to get healthy is signing up with a really expensive personal trainer. Like, if we didn't have gyms, if we didn't have group fitness classes, if we didn't have alternatives, right, it would just be insane, right? Like, you either sign up for like $500 an hour personal trainer or you just stay obese. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like there needs to be a middle market product that can kind of take you some part of the way for those who can't afford like personal coaching.
So
that was pretty much it.
What is it?
First of all, that was so brilliantly articulated. Yeah. I think it's something that I've thought about a lot, and the concept of a financial planner in a lot of ways is your your personal trainer. And then, I guess in a lot of ways, a financial planner tries to automate a lot of it so that, it's almost you're paying a financial planner and then they're doing the lifting for you. So that's that analogy.
Yeah, a bit like a lot of people wish when they go to their personal trainer. I wish they could actually lift these weights for me.
Yeah.
Financial planners can.
Yes, yes. Strangely
Hey, so
enough,
what better than personal trainers?
yeah, correct. Hence the price. But what a great analogy. That if you're obese, your choice is $500 an hour personal trainer or nothing because there's no group classes. And I mean, I can sit here and I can give you all the excuses for why financial planners haven't, based around the compliance issues. And then, I guess that's almost it's almost shrouded in a little bit of disingenuousness as well, because there's been why do it when I make so much money doing it this way? Right?
Yeah, and look, Clayton, I don't think that the price of financial advice needs to come down. Right? So I'm not saying that it's a bad thing that it's super expensive.
Yeah.
It's just a recognition that a middle market product needs to exist. There are valid reasons as to why financial advice needs to be expensive. If you look at the cost of operating a practice, it's like I've got a background in law. I know how law firms they're expensive.
Yeah.
It's expensive to run practices, right?
Yeah.
I don't know the full costs of, financial planning, but looking
It's
at
a lot.
Yeah, licenses themselves, do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And the liability and everything, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And I've talked to many financial advisors who say, I got into this because I wanted to help people, but then if you looked at the practicality, once I got into the industry, the only way for me to make a living was to make sure that I was charging a certain rate, which therefore meant that I was servicing high net worth individuals.
Yeah, correct.
Right? So it's not a bad thing. You need different products for different markets, right?
Yeah.
So once you get to a certain income level, you do want to outsource it. You don't want to have to deal with you just kind of want it done for you,
Yeah,
right?
get it done.
Yeah,
Get it done.
Totally. But
Yeah.
so I'm not at all crapping on the price of financial advice, but it's more of a recognition that, okay, that other 80%.
Well, just
of
what's
Australia,
available for them.
Yeah, what's available on the market. There needs to be an alternative.
Yeah. One of the things that I think the industry has been trying to solve for a long time is attracting that 80%. And if we look at it, it's actually even worse than that. It's 84%. I think it's only 16% of people that get advice. And so how to attract this 84% of people, a lot of it does come down to affordability. And then we've all just sat there and gone, I understand that 84%'s out there, but And so first time I saw you, I think it was
When was that? I was trying to
James.
remember.
It was James from YOLO.
I remember seeing him on social media at one of your
But
sessions.
what was our first?
So the TV were reporting on what you were doing, and
Yeah.
then James was on there.
Yeah.
And
That's right. It was
then,
televised.
yes, and we were like, "Oh wow, James, what are you doing?"
On TV.
Yeah, and he said, "Oh no, it's not me, it's Paridhi." And I said, "Oh, I have to find out what's going on." And that's how we met. And then you were working at Stone,
Oh, that's right.
are
Yeah,
working
yeah.
at Stone and Chalk
Yeah.
for a couple of days a week, and I was working there. And you were like, "Yeah, I'm at 11 York Street,
Oh, that's right.
level
I remember
4,"
this.
and I'm like, "What?"
Are we on the same floor?
I'm on level 5, so I'll just walk down.
We were trying to sync up and meet up, and then we realized
Yeah.
we're actually in the same building.
Yeah.
Makes
And
it
we'd
easy,
never-
doesn't it?
We'd never run into each other.
Yeah.
Well, the other part, the first part of your story around that journey that you went on with the Cancer Council, that I don't know did you ever get into it at all?
No, I tried to.
Yeah,
I
it was
tried to get
one of
into
those
the pro
things,
bono
maybe
stuff, but it was a little bit difficult.
sort of filtered. Were you filtering
Yeah, I
advisors
never
out as
took it
well?
this way.
Is that-
This Clayton guy. No, don't let him in.
But I did a few of them, and there's guys out there that do multiple a year
Yeah.
and really help a lot of people. But I found it so frustrating because you're there helping. You can't affect the outcome. The outcome's already defined.
Yeah.
So you're there trying to just help as much as you can with a situation.
control.
Yeah, it's really damage control, and it's really sad. It's but like what you realize, I'm there going, shit, how do you prevent this? That's sort of where, and you can only do so much. A lot of the people advisors work with, they're on track to not be like that because of that. So that's happening. But like, there's a lot of the people that you're dealing with through the pro bono program were never ever going to get financial advice.
And that's the point. Like, there's a huge, and like I think you alluded to this as well. The whole affordability issue is that there is a certain percentage of the market that is never going to sign up for financial advice. It's just not a sensible option for them.
Yeah, totally.
But that doesn't mean that they should be like in financial distress.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't mean that they should just. And the other option is that you self-educate.
Yes.
Right. And that means that like you're trying to read like the Barefoot Investor and Money Smart and like Google and that's if I just rewind a little bit, when I was like looking at the profile of my friends, these are people who hadn't done a single economics or finance class in their life. They'd gotten to 25, they'd done great professions, and not a single class on even like what's the definition of inflation.
Well, it's even people that work in finance. Like this is Clay's experience as well. Yeah. Like he used to work with quite a few people that were in finance.
Yeah.
And it doesn't define whether you know. So it's actually like, it's almost like a personality filter. The self-starter, the person that's going to go out there and read and learn stuff.
Totally.
And then maybe do it. But there's not a lot of those people.
It's not just that there's not a lot, but there's a huge barrier to entry to self-education, because for a lot of people who don't know the jargon, and I had multiple people tell me this, is that I tried to start reading a website and then I came across a word I didn't understand. So then I clicked on that word and then I went to another website to read what the definition of that word was. And there were 5 more words that I didn't. Do you know what? Like, it's like really hard to like, if you don't understand what tax is, you're not going to understand what a marginal tax rate is. You're not going to understand how tax. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's really, really hard to self-educate if you don't have a baseline level of understanding.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's been so long since I was in that position, but I remember I came out of living in a small little town, and then I played music, and then I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad when I was 21.
Ah, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
And it broke open my mind like a caramel egg, and the gooiness just fell out everywhere, because I just realized there was this whole other world I didn't know. It took me a long time to skill up. So let's actually. So these are all the reasons why you were considering doing what you're doing now, which is Skilled Smart. And then I think a lot of companies have come out and attempted to do what you're doing, but I think you've got a certain ability to get people's attention.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so that's obviously like a compliment to your abilities, but it's also it's one of those things that you watch and you go, okay, so I can't put my finger on why you're resonating, but I know that you're resonating. So, do you have a theory on why you're resonating in this space?
I think it's actually because I'm not coming at it from a finance angle. I'm coming at it from a marketing angle. And I think the challenge that I see in a lot of professions, and this is not just financial planning, but even say law, right, is that lawyers think like lawyers. Financial planners think like financial planners. I'm not a financial planner, and I don't think like a financial planner. So when I started this, it wasn't about financial planning. It was about selling education, right? Like, how do I make that resonate? And I see this mistake happen a lot in like small business, like people who open their own practices, is, you go in to, for example, you want to be like a lawyer, you want to start your own practice, you open your own practice, and then you're taking clients, and then you realize, oh man, I've got to market myself. I've got to sell do you know what I mean? Like, that's a whole other part of the skill set that people don't necessarily anticipate when they start a profession-oriented business.
Yes.
And so I probably think that's why, like, I've been able to kind of not get so stuck in the weeds of trying to, become the best financial planner out there, because that's not actually what I'm trying to do, right? And so from day one, I've been very conscious of for example, how am I writing the copy? What are the colors that I'm using? How am I going to, do you know what I mean? Like that was forefront. That was,
Wow.
yeah.
That's cool.
Well, yeah, I guess like one of the biggest reasons why people don't break through those barriers, and like you were talking about the barriers people get through once they actually break through the initial barrier, which you're dealing with your marketing, which is the scariness of it all. So a lot of people don't even get to asking those questions that you were talking about asking just before. They don't even get to the terminology bit because they're just there's a block there of the way they're communicated to in this space.
Yeah, 100%.
And it just perpetuates that.
And I think part of the challenge in going back to your question and why it's resonating is, you know, what I often see is people in the profession forget what it's like to be a beginner, and they start to talk to beginners as professionals, and that's not how beginners are going to resonate. They get turned off by that. They get very intimidated by that. And so, you know, like, you know, part of, for example, the screening that I do with my instructors is, can they talk like a normal person? You know, can they dress like a normal person? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, as in, lose the tie, lose the suit. So, you know, so I think it's challenging when you are like a deep expert in something to go back and rewind and be a beginner and talk like a beginner or talk like a beginner wants to hear.
What's amazing, the assumed knowledge mentality that people develop as they learn. Like, and it's sort of, you really have to consciously think about your journey and what you've learned along the way to recall that, like, okay, a super contribution is not necessarily a simple thing.
Yeah. And I see that in my instructors. Like, you know, I've never had an instructor who got it the first time. Like the instructors, I actually have a process now where they have to watch a class and they usually come out of that going, oh, this is really basic, right? And I sit in most of my instructors' classes, the first few cohorts, and I'll be dialing them back. I'm like, guys, no one in this class knows who Warren Buffett is. Don't use that exact. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, wow. I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah, no one even knows who Warren Buffett is.
Yeah, like we're talking about people who on the weekends they don't read the AFR. They go to high tea or they go shopping. They don't
Maybe
care.
use Justin Hems as an example.
Yeah, that's a better one. But do you know what I mean? It's like understanding the mentality of where these people are actually at and meeting them where they are instead of assuming that they know what it's like on a trading floor or they know who Warren Buffett is.
Or just requiring that jump to occur sort of thing.
Yeah.
So how have you, because it really does sound like you're talking about this marketing, I guess, thinking. How have you validated, so on this journey, how have you validated the resonation, like that you're resonating and the way you're doing things have been resonating with the classes?
That's a really good question. So I think a lot of it comes down to my initial process. So when I started out, I actually spent quite a lot of time interviewing both sides of the coin. So I spent a lot of time interviewing people who I thought were my potential customer and then a lot of financial advisors as well. And that gave me a really good understanding of what is the kind of language that both parties are using, what are the kind of problems that most of them are talking about. And, you know, so for example, on the financial advisor side, I had financial advisors tell me that, sometimes we have to turn away clients because they're not ready for financial advice. And it's sad because if they were just budgeting or if they were just managing their cash flow, they'd be so much further along, but we don't have a service that can help them, right? And so I was able to kind of piece together a lot of, you know, what both sides of the kind of coin were talking about. And I think one thing that people often miss in marketing is language is really important. And the only way you start to understand the language of your customer is by talking to your customer and actually being able to say, okay, what are the really common phrases that my customer uses, right, to actually describe their problem? And that starts to give you a feel for how do they want a solution to appear in terms of, you know, how they're phrasing their problem. So I think,
is it like almost what's going to be like more comfortable for them to hear? So what's going to be less pushing?
Well, in the sense that you can't offer a solution if you don't understand how someone is describing their problem, right? So if, for example, someone was saying, hey, I want to make 20% returns, right? That's a very different problem to, I don't know the first thing about finance, you know? And so if you don't understand like what language they're using to actually describe their problem, you're going to have you're going to be creating a solution based on what you think the problem is.
So what are these, like, so we've got a lot of financial advisors listening. What are some of the, because what you're doing is super relevant to advisors' communications with their clients. So what are some of the techniques? Is there lots of analogies that you guys use, or
In marketing?
Well, in terms of, like, so you're training of the instructors that are then communicating. What are some of the things that you're getting them to do to bridge that gap?
Yeah. So one is, I think, people relate to human stories. So one of the things I always get my instructors to do is, like, actually, try and pre-plan some stories that you think might be relevant, right? If we're talking about insurance, you've probably had clients who had really good or really bad insurance stories that you can actually use to illustrate this example. Or so that's one. The other is, I think there is a massive shift that needs to occur in experts and professionals generally between telling and then having a conversation, right? So I see a lot of instructors that initially, when they get up, they just kind of want to preach, and they just want to have like a one-way conversation, and they just want to present.
These are the contribution caps, and this is how much it will cost if you do this.
As opposed to saying, like, hey guys, what do you think about life insurance? What's your experience been?
Like pull them in.
Yeah, well, actually have a conversation with them, right? Like it's a lot. It's much harder on the ears if someone's standing up there going, this is why insurance is important, versus starting and saying, well, what do you guys think? And we always have someone in the class who's like, I think insurance is a load of shit, right? And then from there you can go, cool, well, you don't have to buy it. But today I'm just going to explain to you what the different types are, and you can make a decision at the end, right? But that kind of, for that person, you've kind of just taken that objection and said, I've acknowledged that objection, and that's totally okay, right? But if you're kind of going in it from a preaching mode, or I'm the expert, therefore I know, right? It's a lot different on the ears to saying, have a conversation with me.
Well, leading, ask not tell. So leading with a question is validating their presence there.
Yeah, totally.
Like, but you guys are worth it to be here. Like, tell us what you think. We value what you think about.
Totally. And I think increasingly, especially with younger generations, they don't want to be told. They want to be a part of the solution that's being designed.
I'm horrible being told what to do.
Exactly, right? So it's like,
I can relate to it. I'm like, don't tell me what to do. Ask me what I think about it.
Exactly, right? Like they want to be part of, they want to feel like they're being brought in to co-design that solution about their own money, like, so it's more of a collaborative process, I think, than I'm the expert and I know what's best for you type of thing.
That's, super interesting, because that's a good insight into how you're running the sessions that you're doing, and your business is financial education. So if you're getting instructors to sort of help lead people along via a conversation way of engagement. What about, like, why is your marketing working well? Because I agree, engagement is hugely important. You need to engage before you can educate. And I also massively agree with the human story piece. I think human stories are very, very engaging. But that's not what you're doing when you're marketing. When you're marketing on a Twitter or LinkedIn, you're using a different method because you're unable to do that in 160 characters or whatever it is. So what are you doing in your marketing that's working well?
So I think to peel it back, I actually spent about 6 months upskilling in digital marketing about 2 years ago. So when I first knew that, like, I want to kind of start some kind of business, I was like, hey, this is a pretty important topic to understand, right?
Yeah.
So I invested pretty heavily in understanding that space. And I think that is really, really key. Because then you kind of, and I'm still learning. I'm, like, by no means an expert, but I think that allowed me to come at it understanding what are the various channels available to me and how to go about testing each of those and what might be beneficial at various stages. Like, for example, like, I knew that AdWords probably wasn't going to be right for the earlier stages of the business. I kind of had a sense of, like, what what are the various channels and how they, because I'd seen it. Like I did some freelance digital marketing for about a year. I'd kind of spent some time in the digital marketing space.
Interesting.
So what are the hottest tips for advisors?
Well,
out there?
wait. Before we don't need to dive into that extent, but I'm definitely interested to know. Let's say I wanted to upskill my digital marketing.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you did, or where should I push me in the right direction?
So I did the short course with General Assembly. That is a bit of a investment.
Yep.
But I did that because I'd spent some time self-educating, and interestingly, it was a similar level of overwhelm with digital marketing when I was starting out as it might be with finance for a beginner, in the sense that it was kind of like, oh, there's SEO, oh, there's what do I do, right? And I didn't really know how do you look at the bigger picture, right? And so by doing the course, it was good because you kind of saw the bigger picture view, and then you're kind of able to understand how it all fits together, like from a strategic perspective. And then that allows you to kind of be like, okay, I understand where content marketing sits as opposed to AdWords, right? So for example, content marketing, it's a long-term play. It's not a short. You're not going to put out a blog post and get 3 customers, right? It's just not going to happen. Whereas like AdWords is great for like short-term testing and things like that.
Yeah.
So like you kind of start to learn from a strategic perspective, how does digital marketing play out, and what do you need to invest in to get different results at different points of your business. So that was a really useful starting point for me.
So did you come out of that with like a clear trajectory going, at this point in the business, I will then start doing this?
No. It's like...
It sounds like that.
Yeah. No, but it gives you like a really good foundation. Yeah. And then you're able to start piecing it together and like testing and learning and all of that. So
I suppose because a lot of people sort of hear about marketing and they hear the concepts, but they're just looking at them. They're not coming up above all the different concepts of marketing channels that you can use and going, okay, what's the rationale? Like you're saying, in terms of what's the rationale. Unless you're Clayton.
I've seen Adrian Paddy do some hilarious attempts at marketing. I remember when you started your company.
This is about Paridhi.
And we got wildly off track here.
And Adrian thought it was a good idea that everyone and their dog would want a little booklet on his business and just have pictures of Sydney.
Brochure.
It's just pictures of the Harbour Bridge and things like super. You need to look at your super account.
Yeah.
It was gorgeous. It was such a nice
And I remember
brochure.
looking at it just going, who do you give this to? Do you give this to someone who wants a financial planner, or do you give this to an existing client? And how do you give it to them? Are you going to stand it on the street, or is it just meant for them in your waiting office? Like, it was so hilarious. But
I say the same thing about his book.
Yeah. Touche, good sir, touche. Digital marketing is so important that I know a financial planner who was living in England, and his job was he would receive leads from a big institution, and then he would take those leads and give them a call, and then it was his job to turn them into clients. And as Glenn Ross would say, the leads are weak, right? So it wasn't leading to a lot of business. So he learned how to do digital marketing, and he ended up being the most successful financial planner in his office simply because he wasn't using the leads that he was getting. He was developing his own leads via digital marketing. He ended up getting so good at it that he built a digital marketing agency and just recently sold it for like multiple millions of dollars. He started out as a financial planner. What's interesting about that story and what you're talking about now is if you nail the digital marketing space, if you are engaging with that 180 characters or on that LinkedIn post and with your colors and everything that you're talking about, it's amazing what can be achieved. And I think traditionally in financial advice, we haven't really tried to do too much there. There was always the problem, the issue that maybe you say something wrong. But it was really more why bother when friends simpler ways of that are more immediate. Hey, do you know anyone that needs
instant
advice?
Client gratification sort of thing.
Correct. And it was never need to build too much of a pipeline because you don't need.
Well, it's an investment. Like you had to.
It is an
you
investment.
had to put effort into it.
Yeah, correct. And so now that you've spent a bit of time, you've got that skill up your sleeve, you're now achieving traction, you're drawing the attention of not only financial planners but also clients who are learning in your company. Where are you headed? What's the next step? Yeah.
Just bigger and better.
Are you going for learn? Are you going for learn? Are you going for LearnVest? Are you going
so
for?
have you seen what's happened to LearnVest?
Since it's been purchased?
Yeah.
Pretty much been
It's
gutted.
demolished.
Yeah.
Well, they just stripped out the tech.
They just stripped out everything.
They just put product in there.
It's just a.
It's devastating.
Well, no, like.
Well, it's got logos, branding, and everything on the.
Isn't it just like a content platform now?
I don't know. I haven't
Is
seen-
it? I don't know. Last time I looked at it, I was just disappointed.
Well, just for the listeners, because LearnVest, I know it's like one of the more sort of robo, so to speak, advice platforms in the US. But do they have a specific like?
Well, when did you last look at it?
Years ago.
Oh, no. So, like, in the last year, they scrapped their whole model and now they're just a digital publishing.
Oh,
So Northwestern, that bought them, I think it was Northwestern.
for $300 and something
Whatever.
million.
They scrapped it. They just said, like, they tried it for a few years, got rid of the whole thing. And now
Whoa.
they are just a content publishing,
Yeah, right.
kind of like The Balance, if you guys have. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
No.
That's like a, yeah.
But going back to its original purpose, which was financial education mixed in with helping people develop their own plans and
Yeah.
things like that, is that where you're headed? I just want to know, because when
Good
do I
question.
invest if you're going to
Yeah.
be worth $300 million?
Yeah, right. Well, any day's fine. Happy to take
Earlier the better, Clay. You know, you always get a better deal.
You never know when I'm going to become a unicorn. The short answer is I think tech is important,
Sure.
but I don't think it's important in the immediate to short term.
Cool. So you just stick with the format you've got going at the moment, which is workshops.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's going to be an education play for at least the next 12 to 24 months.
Are you going to turn into a registered training organization?
No, because RTOs are more for vocational, from what
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this was never intended to be vocational.
Well,
so it's
and
all,
then it starts to get dictated by other
Yeah,
parties in terms of what you do.
Yeah.
Like it's like you got to match to like a syllabus that's already been
100%,
predefined.
Yeah, and I think like part of our like the way that we sell it is inherently not like
Structured.
Well, it is structured.
Overly- sorry, okay,
but
yep.
it's not like you're going to a community college to learn a certain skill, which then you can kind of upskill your vocation. Like it's meant to be for personal use, and I think there's a certain like look and feel that like University of Sydney type marketing might have compared to just like the kind of marketing that we do. So it was never intended to be like something that you can put on your LinkedIn profile type of thing.
So I was on the FPA chapter and we started looking at and a lot of advisors in the group have looked at school education around financial literacy. And there's a lot of awesome advisors that are out there that are spending time in schools. There's a couple of good programs that have come through. What's the one? Spriggy or something?
Oh, yeah, Spriggy.
Yes, there's a few things that really get into school and starting to teach concepts. But we actually went down to talk to the education, the education department down at Oxford Street or whatever. And it was just really interesting that it wasn't making its way into the core curriculum.
Yeah.
It was still an option that the principal would be able to make a call on. So they've got this huge overflowing curriculum and syllabus that the teachers have to deal with. And it was up to the principal on what was allowed in still there. So it hadn't made it into the core sufficiently. And you look at what Money Smart's got, there's some amazing stuff on there.
Yeah,
like
totally.
what they've put together.
Yeah.
But it's just like, obviously there would have to be a lot of work before there would be nothing for you to do. And there's always going to be people that don't listen to at school. But what could they do? What would you see as sort of helping the problem at a broader scale? Like, because you can do your part. And
Yeah. I have a bit of a controversial view about
Tell me.
about education, financial education, and
Education in general.
Yeah.
Scrap the schooling system.
Yeah.
It's going nowhere.
Anarchy.
But okay, so a lot of people talk to me about financial education in schools and why I'm not doing it in schools. And I think so. Initially, when I started out, I knew there was a need for financial education. in general. And so I tested various markets, right? So I went and talked to people at uni. I went and talked to like high school leavers, that kind of thing. And there are a couple of things that I think are really important to remember. And I think the first is that kids don't have money. And it's really hard to care about
something you don't have.
You don't have money. You really care about money when you have it and it's, bleeding out of your bank and you're like, shit, what's happening?
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Well, actually, you should, but a lot of people still don't care about that.
That's the point at which people start
There is something to care about.
There needs to be something to care about. And kids are just too removed from...
You can sell them greed.
Can't really, because
accumulation of money.
That just becomes like, they get everything. They get everything from the parents, so they just become greedy.
Yeah,
kids.
no, you put forward a very good point.
Do you understand? And so, it's very hard to I don't remember a lot of the things that I learned at school because I just didn't care about geography.
The whole I don't give a shit about stuff factor. That teenagers have.
It's very hard to we find that the people who make the most progress are the people who care. And the people who care are the people who have a motivation to care. For example, we just had a student who was in her late 50s. She can see retirement around the corner. She cannot see her capacity to actually afford retirement. She's very, very motivated, right? We have people who are just about to have a kid, right? They're very, very motivated.
It's very similar triggers to when people engage with financial advisors.
Yeah, it is.
But it just actually they're able to do something with you as opposed to being scared off by the fees or...
Yeah. And so the idea of education in schools, it's a noble one, but I don't know if it's the most effective one, right? The second challenge that you have is that most high school teachers or school teachers themselves aren't really great with money. They're not necessarily trained to be talking about asset allocation. And that's why one of my pet peeves is that for some reason, the one word that most people associate with money, guess what it is?
Debt.
Budgeting.
Oh, okay. Damn it.
Yeah. If you talk to people, right, it's what do you want to learn about money? Oh, budgeting. It's they say that by default because they think that is the road to good money management. They don't know anything else.
Yeah.
And I believe that's partly because you've got untrained teachers in school who are doing life skills classes and talking about budgeting. And it's actually, that's not the most important thing. Do you know what I mean?
What is the most important thing for you?
Oh, that's a tough question, Adrian. Jesus.
I was just curious. Yeah.
I think for me personally, I think the most important thing is understanding the difference between money and wealth, right? So what I see in students and what I see in the mass population is that most people think having an income and having a bigger and bigger and bigger income is the most important thing.
More is better.
Yeah, and they don't actually understand the process of how that gets converted into wealth and assets.
Yeah.
So
income versus assets. Yeah, actually,
so I'm earning more, but I'm spending more, but I've got money.
But I'm rich because I'm earning $300,000.
Yeah,
you had a few clients like that.
Very similar idea that, the difference between an expense and a liability. And you're saying the difference between income and asset. Yeah, it's very true. I think those two things hugely important.
Yeah, especially because the reality is that most of us, or the most of the population, has this illusion that if I had more money, if I had a bigger income, everything would be fine, right? And they look at people on high incomes as though that's aspirational, right? And they don't realize that actually a lot of people on those incomes are also broke. They're still paycheck to paycheck because they're not saving. They're not. 100%. Do you know what I mean? They've just got that lifestyle. They don't understand that. So I think that's the most important thing.
Good answer.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good answer.
What do you think, Clay?
Well, I've already answered. Yeah, difference between a liability and an expense. And I remember the moment it dawned on me. I was sitting in my accounting class, and we're going through expense and liability, and I was sitting there, and the finger of God come down and just bounced off my forehead, and I understood the difference between expense and liability, and I realized in that exact moment how important that is. One is a one-off, and the other is constantly eating your money behind your back without you even thinking about it. And right then and there, that was probably the biggest epiphany I've had with money. But to your point, people who have money that's dripping in on a regular basis see that as the be all and end all, whereas it's actually the bits that aren't growing any further through more contributions is actually the most important part, because that will end up becoming the new drip feed when you no longer can add to that. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice, guys. I think we'll just sit with those two great answers there. I'm curious about what the journey looks like when someone first engages with you, going through the program. What are some of how are those next steps sort of play out?
Yeah, that's a good question. What's the journey like from the time that someone drops into your digital marketing campaign? Do you know this sort of detail?
It's not that automated yet.
Right.
I'd love to get to that point.
But do you have some idea of how long it takes for someone to warm up to you before they attend a workshop? It's kind of hard data to get.
I was actually more alluding to their journey, and that was part of the journey. But yeah, what's their learning journey, and do you have tiered steps in it?
Do you have a framework, or is it?
Yeah. So it's all very structured, and it's been structured around the core elements of what a financial advisor would go through.
Wow, cool.
Okay.
It's you kind of go through the basics of your saving and budgeting, then your insurance, and then your investing, and then your tax and super. And so, every week they have a new topic, and they kind of sequentially understand things in a way that's designed.
Is there gamification?
No, not really. No.
I don't know. I'm just asking.
Might get there one day. But
do they get badges for anything?
Okay, something you need to know about Adrian.
They get to save a ton of money, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So are you measuring what they have how they start with you, and then?
So we do follow-up calls. I'll pretty much do a follow-up call after about a month, and then depending on how I kind of feel about where they're at, maybe every 3 months. So
is there follow-up? So they do. So it's a one-off program. And then is there anything that they would then revisit with you?
So we're having a couple of people come back to do it a second time, of course. So I think we're old enough now. We've just hit about over a year.
Awesome.
But there isn't a second product for them to fall into at the moment. Yeah, well, I think the thing is that a lot of them, it's a lot of content in the first course. And the reality is that a lot of them aren't able to action everything in that course period of time. And so it takes them a while, even after the course, to kind of go through. And because, for example, for the superannuation bit, we're hey, hop on the phone with your superannuation fund, and here are all the 50 questions that you should ask them.
Oh, that's really cool.
So, it takes them a while to get through all of those activities. And so it's not something that they need to immediately be funneled into a high level product, because it's going to take them a while to even get through, what they it's a pretty comprehensive program. And if you actually do all the activities, you will get 70% of the way there.
And what is the cost?
The cost?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's about $99 a week at the moment with it will probably go from between $99 a week to $150 a week.
For how long?
For 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Wow. Okay. And you're running these every 6 weeks? So you start one?
Currently got 3 courses running concurrently. So we've got one Monday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah.
All just in Sydney at the moment?
Well, we've got a virtual offering. So we've got
Could advisors make use of this to support? Because a lot, I guess, you've invested a lot to develop this framework, and we talk about the cost of advice, and the reason why a lot of advisors can't spend this time is because it's expensive to spend all this time and develop all this, I guess,
curriculum.
Yeah, the
content.
curriculum, and so is that something that advisors could work with?
As in, should they be doing it themselves?
No. I'm saying I'm coming from the assumption that advisors can't. A lot of the time put this together. They don't, the financials don't stack up. They've got clients to see, they're doing stuff.
Yeah. As in white label it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, so it's something that I've considered. It's probably not going to be on offer anytime soon. Okay. And yeah, I think one of the reasons is that when I looked at whether there was room for this, what I found is that there are financial advisors who are doing education programs, right? But there is an appetite in the market for having something that's independent, that isn't a sales funnel into someone's financial services.
Good point.
Do you know what I mean? Like, as in the idea that you can go to this place, you can learn, and you can feel very safe in the knowledge that no one is trying to sell you
that you're not going to sign up to something at the end.
Service
right.
at the end.
Right.
Fair enough.
And it's like, look, I totally respect where you're coming from, Adrian. And
I'm thinking actually they already want to work with the advisor, but the advisor's going, this person needs some upskilling. So they've identified a need and they're like, well, I can't spend this much time. I've got to charge them way too much to deal with this.
Yeah.
This would be really beneficial for this person to go through.
Yeah.
That's an interesting concept.
That's more the concept because it's not a funnel into the advisor. It's like it's
for
hard
like
for an advisor
clients.
if the advisor's the only person that can have these conversations in their business and they've got a lot of competing clients to deal with and with their time and strategies to do.
We have had financial planning practices approach us for white labeling, and I think it would be a different product because the product that we've designed is designed to be delivered by an instructor.
Even the online?
Yeah, it's delivered live by an instructor. It's not
so it's like a
pre-recorded
live
material.
webinar each session.
Yeah. And so it's specifically designed to be delivered by an instructor, right?
Okay.
And so there is definitely room for like a white labeling different products that we might put out. But the one that we've currently got is designed to be like presented live. And
Did they not like the idea of someone else presenting?
They were looking for something that was like no presentation required. You can just plug and play, get their clients to do the.
Okay. Yeah. Just self-service sort of thing.
Yeah. Is that what you were alluding to?
I was alluding because I thought that was what the online would be.
Yeah,
but the instructing can still work. It's like it's just about economies of scale. You got a smaller business that like to invest and develop something that's good. It takes time and effort. So pull in resources.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, there's definitely scope for it.
So if anyone's interested, just reach out to Paridhi.
Totally. Can make it work.
Thanks so much for coming on. If advisors or anyone wants to reach out and learn more, how would they do that?
Paridhi at skilledsmart.com.au. My first name. Well, are you going to put it in the show notes? Or
Okay.
Yeah. Only because
people will know who you are. They'll be able to click. They'll even be able to click a button. They won't even have to try and spell your name or anything.
Yeah, I was just like, do I spell out my name on the podcast? Or do I do that? So Paridhi at skilledsmart.com.au.
Awesome.
You can flick me an email and would love to catch up. I'm always looking for like professionals who want to speak as well. We run like events and workshops. Clayton was at one of our panels.
Yes.
So always good to connect.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on and sharing your insights. I think you've come at it from a really cool, unique angle, and hopefully advisors can take something from that.
Thanks so much, Clayton and Adrian.
Yeah, cheers,
awesome.
Paridhi.
Cheers.
Good to be here.